Nelson?
Here.
Mr. Patel?
Here.
Ms. Rivers?
Here.
Mrs. Salgado Cowan? Ms. Stafford? We have 8 present.
Thank you. Hereby be it known that the Piscataway Township Board of Education has complied with the notification requirements of the Open Public Meeting Act for the announcement of this meeting taking place on June the 30th, 2026 in the following manner. Posting of the public notice on the Board of Education website at www.piscatawayschools.org. Posting of the public notice on the posting board of the Board of Education in the Administration Building. Email notification filed with the municipal clerk at the municipal building on Hills Lane. This meeting is being digitally recorded. This recording is not an official record or supplement to the minutes. It is intended only as a source of information that the public might utilize at a later date to familiarize themselves with the board activities. Executive session. Be it resolved that the board adjourn to executive session for the purpose of review and discussion of personnel agenda, litigation, HIV monthly reports, and other matters pursuant to law NJSA 10:4-12B. Can I have a motion?
Motion.
Can I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We are in executive session.
recharge their batteries as we prepare for an exciting 2026-2027 school year. Piscataway Summer Camp will be wrapping up another successful summer program this week. Our children in grades pre-K through 8 have had great fun that included a family barbecue, art, movies, and pool time, plus wonderful trips to water parks and the Bronx Zoo, as well as the Somerset Patriot Game, a beach day, and the boardwalk, an aquarium, and Bonthun's Farm, and Tomahawk Lake. Yeah, they go on a trip every week. Our summer camp is fabulous. We are thrilled that the Community Education Office is able to offer this great experience to our students each year. As a parent who experienced 2 children going through our Piscataway Summer Camp, it is a savior. So I do appreciate that as a personal level as well. As we draw closer to the start of another school year, our athletes are hitting the fields. We have our soccer players out there. We have our band camp going on right now. We have our football players and cheerleaders getting conditioned and starting off their year. We have a lot going on with the high school. It's already started. And our very first football game will be on Friday, August 28th. So it's right around the corner. It's actually before the start of school. The Chiefs hope to build on last year's successful year and another march into the playoffs. Our middle school football began practices on Tuesday to follow up the back-to-back championship seasons. The Super Chiefs marching band, as I mentioned, also started their camp week, and they'll be culminating with their annual preview show tomorrow. If anyone is available, I believe the show is at 6 o'clock, or is it 7? Not sure, but check on the district website. The rest of our Piscataway High School sport teams begin practice in the next couple of days and weeks. Best of luck to all of our coaches, student athletes, as they work hard to get ready for the fall. In addition, I would like to bring attention to the fact that we are wearing our color for the month of August is for psoriasis awareness. There was an article printed, if you haven't seen it, in our district website every month, starting, I believe, in the month of March. We started wearing a color a month in order to acknowledge awareness for different health causes for this year. And that's it for me. Oh, one other last thing. I want to thank every single one of my school board members for completing their board self-evaluation. And we'll be having our summer retreat this weekend. Thanks. Moving on to superintendent's report.
Good evening, everyone. Peace and blessings. Happy summer. Board members, I'm going to ask at this time, because of 2 very significant presentations that we have to provide to you and the public, that we convene on the first row so that you can see the presentation, because we're going to have the screen come down in a minute, and then I will begin from there. Dr. Lotman, and can we just actually move the microphone and podium over so that we can see the board's face and the public can see our face? Thank you very much. So as the department is getting our technology screen down, and we might need to dim the lights just so that the public can see, as well as before we begin, I want to, Director Edmondson, you just join me on this side when we get ready. I want to, first and foremost, communicate that this has been a very, I would like to say, eventful, fun, exciting summer. I think in Madam President's report, she mentioned about the exciting times that many of our students have had an opportunity to participate in this summer in our community education and school-based activities. In September, we're going to do a formal presentation so that you get a full grasp of everything that our students participated in. This year we had well over 300 students participate in many activities that were enriching. I noticed that I didn't receive any phone calls about the fact that we eliminated a significant program that folks were accustomed to having, but we replaced it with very enriching, rewarding activities and really no significant increase in cost to our community. In fact, enhanced our students' experiences. We got a chance to actually learn from each other and appreciate the diversity that our community has to offer. So I just wanted to tee that up as part of my report that in September, you'll get a full report of the number of students, the activities, the unique activities, and what we have in store. And we've already started planning for the summer of 2027 and what our students will be able to enjoy and be a part of. Additionally to that, we are excited about some of the new academic pathways that are on the horizon this fall for our students in the high school. But we're going to tee that up a little bit in the middle school area, but definitely in the high school, which will allow our students, more students, to have options for college and career pathways that will give them industry value credentials, that will also give them an opportunity to participate in more dual enrollment courses. Again, opportunities for our students to be prepared for post-secondary life. The commitment in such a short window of time, and I have a great staff that has made sure that we're preparing our district and our students to be ready and digital citizens, but just great citizens when they graduate from Piscataway High School. There are several other components, and I like to just shout out collaboration. Many times you get into organizations, people understand that when you collaborate with your collective bargaining units, people think it's contentious. I want to give acknowledgement and awareness to both of the collective bargaining units here in our district. We've been working collaboratively to make sure that we're looking at professional development very differently. The partnership is going to happen on September 1st, September 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. We've already solidified that with our union leadership here in the district. Joe Toma happens to be here this evening. And NJEA, we're already going to collaborate to make sure teachers and leaders collaborate around this evaluation, coaching, and support. That word support comes up a lot when we think about educators and what we do to help them be better educators. Because our district is on that pathway of excellence, we're good. We're going to skip grade. We're going right to exemplary if it's under my leadership. But you still have to support teachers through coaching, through good evaluation. So we're going to collaborate the first week in making sure that our teachers are getting the necessary tools in their toolbox to be prepared. We have so much more we want to share, but I want to articulate it in writing so that you can see it. It's going to live in our website. On our website, it's going to live in many spaces, but it's essential that we understand that in order for our district to get to the space that we need to, we have to make sure we have great leaders who are professionally coaching and developing our educators so they can touch the lives of our students every day and make them better learners. And that's what the ultimate goal of our district is. We're going to add some more social emotional supports in our schools. We've already teed up, we're finding the funds creatively and collaborating with our agencies to make sure we still get more supports to our students. And those supports are directly tied to making sure our students are healthy mentally and socially when they walk in the doors. So for the board members and to the public, so when people say, what are you doing to help? It's above the Haven, which we all know is a great resource in our district, but it's going to also touch our middle school students who we know are struggling. And it's going to touch some of our trouble spots. And when it comes to students who are still trying to figure out how to cope with life and the realities of what's going on in their home. So we have a lot. It's not just about talking about it, but you're going to see it, you're going to feel it. Each one of my department leads, my directors, my assistant superintendents, will be giving reports on a frequent basis because we've reshape the way we lead a little bit, just to make sure that the touch points to the community from our leaders were visible, but you also hear it. The experience of one parent doesn't make it the experience of the whole district. However, the experience of one parent is something we have to listen to. And I just want to make sure I acknowledge that you're going to hear from our leaders in various ways and capacities. And tonight is one of those ways you're going to hear from one and a half of our leaders. But we're going to have a conversation. Although it's required for us to share out the results of access testing for our multilingual learners, it's also required for us to share out our DLM results for our students who are receiving special education service and have to take the DLM assessment. So I'm going to tell you in advance, it's a little, you might be sitting for a few minutes, but it's essential, it's necessary, and I definitely want folks to be prepared to ask questions. We're going to first lead by having a report come to you that highlights our student access results, WIDA results, from our new supervisor who's been doing this work in other districts, but our new ESL bilingual and world language supervisor, Ms. Evelyn Paraquet.
Thank you, Superintendent Glover. Good evening, Board of Education members, Superintendent Glover, and Piscataway Township community. So I have the privilege of presenting our access data. This is a really weird situation to be in, as I wasn't here last year to see what actually happened, and it's been the summer, so I haven't even observed our kids or met some of our teachers, but that's fine. We're just gonna dive right in. Maybe I'll dive in, maybe. There we are. So before I talk about our multilingual learners, I just wanna make sure that we understand how our students become multilingual learner, how they get identified. And this process is a 3-step process, and it is for the entire state of New Jersey, not just Piscataway. So first, an incoming student is registered, and the family is given a home language survey, and they tell us how language is used in the home. From there, a student is either identified as maybe ML or not ML. I get the maybe MLs, or the schools get the maybe MLs, and then we sift through to do step 2, which is the records review. To do a records review, you kind of have to have been in school, so we can do records review for students who are like K-12. For pre-K, that's really having a conversation with the families to understand how language is used in the home. From that records review, the child is still a maybe until step 3, which is the screening, which is done by a certified ESL teacher. But I wanted to make sure that we understood that that's how we get to this point. If the child tests and gets below 4.5, then they are identified as a multilingual learner and are eligible for services, either bilingual or ESL. Okay. Oh no. Okay. So, the state of the district for MLs. Our total enrollment in 24-25 was about 662 students. Last year we had about 650. And this year, for where we are right now, we're at 606, but that number is going to fluctuate and it'll go up as we screen students and identify them. We also have 53 duly identified MLs, which they have an IEP, and they also have they get ESL services. We're doing some really exciting things here. We have 164 exited MLs. So to exit ESL, you have to get that 4.5 on the WIDA access. So we have 86 students who are in year 1 of that monitoring, and then we have 78 students who are in year 2. And students who exit are monitored for 2 years to ensure that sustained proficiency is continuing and that they're still able to meet the needs of the general ed space. We are a very diverse town, as you guys know, district, and the linguistic diversity is up above. We have about 350 Spanish-speaking MLs, then Gujarati, which is about 80, Arabic, Telugu, just so that we understand, the state says that we are required to provide a full-time bilingual program for any language group of 20 or more students. If we cannot provide that, the state does allow us to do a bilingual waiver, and then there are some alternatives that we can do, and that is what we do here in district. And I'll talk to those alternatives shortly. I don't know where to point this, guys. So just wanted to give us a visual of MLs over time. As you can see, we're growing. And I suspect that those bars for 26, 27 are going to grow as we screen our newly registered students that are coming in. And this is something that we see across districts. Multilingual learners are like our fastest growing population in New Jersey. So when we talk about those alternative programs, if we're not going to provide a Spanish bilingual program, a Gujarati bilingual program, these are the types of programming that we can provide. So, which is really exciting. We have a full-time ESL teacher at pre-K. Kudos to us, because that's amazing. So we do have a teacher who supports in pre-K. Important to note, for pre-K, we do not have to provide programming, we do have to provide support. We have to identify and provide support. In K-12, we do have to provide programming. So we have a part-time Spanish bilingual program at Eisenhower and Arbor, and students receive 1 period of language arts and math and Spanish, and then the certified ESL teacher supports for 1 period. And yes, 1 period for that group. So the K group gets 1 period of ESL, first grade 1. Got it? In K to 5, we have sheltered English classes, and that means that our teachers, our gen ed teachers are either sheltered English trained, which is strategies, a toolkit that teachers receive to deliver instruction for RMLs, or they have, this is also a cool thing that we do in Piscataway, they're duly endorsed. They also have a gen ed cert and an ESL cert. So RMLs are placed with one of those teachers, and then the ESL teacher supports for 1 period as well. And then we have high intensity at the middle school and high school, and that is 2 periods of ESL provided by an ESL certified teacher. So now that we have gone through programming, let's talk about the test. So it is the yearly test, and I just want to point out that multilingual learners are the only population of students who begin testing in kindergarten and continue to test until they can exit. It's just something that grinds my gears. The test is a language proficiency test, and it tests listening, reading, speaking, and writing. And as I mentioned before, students have to get a 4.5 or above to exit, and then we have to complete, the ESL teacher has to complete an English language observation form verifying that they're ready to exit the program. There are some situations where we might not exit an amount who gets a 4.5 and above, but typically we do tend to exit. These are the 6 levels of language proficiency that access tests. So a student who receives a 1 is entering, and they are using minimal social language, social English, and minimal academic language. It's the baseline. Students at level 2 are emerging. They know some social English and some general academic language with visual and graphic support. Level 3 students are developing. They know and use social English and have some academic language with visual and graphic support. Level 4 is expanding, and at this point, our students have a strong grasp of social language, and they can, and they have that technical academic language that they need to succeed in the general ed classroom. What I want to point out here is that social language is the language of, friends, and the playground, and the cafeteria, and that multilingual learners get that fairly quickly, within 6 months to 2 years. But the academic language takes anywhere from 5 to 7 years. So it's typical that you will see your ML in program for up to 5 years because that is what research says. So how does the test get scored? You get a listening score, a speaking score, and then there's an oral language score. It's 50% speaking, 50% listening. And there's a reading and a writing score, and then there's a literacy and a comprehension score. What's important to note here is that our MLs have to get 70% in reading and writing in order to be proficient, in order to move, right? Like that's a big chunk of the score. And so it's important to understand the anatomy of the score. So now let's talk about our scores. So this is exciting to see as we are moving English language proficiency. As you can see, level 1 in 24-25 was at 15%, and we only had 10% this year. Level 2, 25 to 20. Level 3 is concerning because our students kind of plateau at that level 3, and that's something that I do need to do more research on and see why that is. But then as you can see for level 4 and on, we've increased those levels, and that is what we want to see. We want to see students moving into the 3s, into the 4, and above. Questions? I'm seeing faces. No? I can keep going? Yes.
So, the 4.5 for its exit, what is the max score? 6, I guess?
6.
Okay, I just want to verify, clarify. Thank you.
6 is the max score, 4.5 you can exit. In my 5 weeks in district, I was not able to do that deep level dive, but I am so excited to get into classrooms. I think once I'm in classrooms and meeting with teachers, I'll be able to see what is actually happening. I want to get this right so that I have one time to learn. So these are the number of exits. Last 24-25 we had 68 exits. This year we had 59 exits. So that means that 59 of our MLs K-12 got that 4.5. They don't officially exit until our teachers come back and complete that observational form, but they will be exited. Something to note here, because I was wondering why we dipped a little, this was a new test. I did hear in my previous district from my teachers that it was more challenging. So I wonder if that has something to do with it. But it wasn't that big of a decrease, so I'm not too worried. So now we have to do the domain analysis, and what we see here is kind of typical for multilingual learners. Listening is weighted at 15%, and it is a receptive skill. It is the ability to process, understand, and interpret spoken language, and it typically develops first. As you can see, our students are doing great in listening, and that is typical. Most multilingual learners listen. It's the first skill to develop. Reading, as you can see, is the ability to process, understand, and interpret written language, and we're kind of more scattered about, right? There's more ranges in reading. It shows a wide variance, and because it dictates that 35% to exit, like you need that much, we really need to do some work in reading. But what I'm excited about is that we moved to the science of reading. We are now aligned to the ELA curriculum, so I'm thinking that we'll see different outcomes next year now that there's that alignment. Next is speaking, ability to communicate orally in English. Very low scores in speaking, but this is also typical. It is typical for multilingual learners to be shy, to not want to speak, to not feel confident in their oral language, and so this is something that we need to address, and I do have something for that. And then writing, 35% Again, writing also is telling us that MLs are struggling in writing, also typical across the board for MLs. They do tend to do better in the listening and the reading domains and struggle in writing and speaking. So I do have to present subgroup data. So just a highlight, gender variance, females did outperform slightly, but it's not that huge. There is a linguistic disparity amongst our Urdu and Gujarati speakers. They lead in overall proficiency, while our Spanish and Arabic cohorts really need targeted supports. There was an uptick in our Hispanic and Latino students demonstrating accelerated growth, which is really exciting to see. And then there's a surge in grades 3 to 5 that was also really exciting to see. So I'm really excited to get into those 3 to 5 classrooms to see what's happening there. This is the female-male variance. Again, very small, not very worried about that. This is where we see that racial disparity that was pointed out. So our Asian and white cohorts are reaching levels of proficiency a little faster than our Black and Hispanic cohorts. And we do, as a district, have to spend some time figuring out why that is and how we can have targeted interventions and supports for this group of students. Again, just to go a little deeper, so our students who are Urdu and Gujarati cohorts, they are demonstrated rapid transitions to higher proficiency tiers, registering in that 3.5 to 6, which means they're exiting faster. While our Spanish and Arabic cohorts are kind of frequently clustered in the 1.2 to 2.8, so that entering and emerging. So again, we have to do work. This is that positive uptick in our Hispanic Latino cohort. There was an upward mobility for this group. We moved from about 1.2 to 2 to intermediate proficiency bands 3 to 4.5. So really exciting. That's from comparing last 24-25 to 25-26. Exciting to see. That might be because we have a Spanish bilingual program that I hear was started a year ago, right? So that might be the uptick that we are now. The research shows that you should teach in the native language, in the heart language. Once you are strong in that language, then you can learn the second language. But because we're not doing that, that might be why we're not seeing that. But to see that we have that part-time bilingual program is exciting because we can see that it's working. In speaking about our duly identified MLs, so our MLs who have ESL and IEPs, in about late elementary, so 5th grade-ish, we start to see this gap where our duly identified MLs are not exiting, so fewer than 5% of students carry an IEP and they're not exiting, right? So we're not doing the linguistic work for students to pass this test, and we have to take a look at why. And there was also an increase from 24 to 25, about 26% increase from our duly identified MLs. So again, just things we need to take a look at and provide interventions and strategies for. So what does the overall scores tell us? So there's a rapid growth in K-5, that makes sense. Students in that, I have a 7-year-old, right, and she's just picking up everything, all types of understandings. It makes sense that in K-5 there's a strong uptick in foundational growth and a high volume of exits. We see a plateau in middle school, not sure why that is. My 5 weeks has not allowed me to see why that is. But I suspect that we don't have the right programming at the middle school, right? We have the high intensity, and that might not be the appropriate program that we need at middle school. And then in grades 9 to 12, speaking and writing are a struggle for our students. There is an uptick uptick in grade 12, where students are exiting, but there's a grade 9 crisis in that we're getting newcomers, and it looks like we may not be meeting their needs, right? A newcomer, a 9th grade newcomer is coming to us with a strong foundation in their home language, and then we need to meet them where they are and make the English language teaching, we have to bring it to their level, right? We have to be sure that we're being respectful of what we're doing and that our interventions are meeting their needs at that age, right? Not for like a 5th grader, because they're 9th graders. Okay, so this is where we see the most growth in that 3 to 5 bands. Again, not sure, actually I might have taken notes somewhere because I was thinking about this. No, I did not write my note down. But interesting to see why in grades 3 to 5 we're seeing this rapid growth. Again, it might be because we have that part-time bilingual program. I'm not sure. We might have the duly identified teachers in those buildings, in those classrooms. I am not sure why this is, but it is something we need to take a look at so that we can replicate it across the district. In kindergarten, you see this baseline where the scores are clustered in that 1 to 1.8 range, and that is typical, that is what you should see. In high school, in grades 9 to 12, you see that our scores are clustered everywhere, from 1.7 to 4.5 range, right? And so this mix of data shows that like what we're doing at the high school for MLs, we need to do something differently for our newcomers and our beginners than what we do for our long-term MLs. And so what can we do? Here's some things we can do. We need to capitalize on that rapid language growth that we see in grades 3 to 5 and figure out what is happening there so that we can replicate that success. We need to provide targeted supports to our Spanish and Arabic cohort so that they too are rapidly moving. We do need to differentiate our secondary models, right? Middle school and high school need to be looked at closely to see what linguistic models are working versus what is not working. That ESL and IEP equity gap, we do need to collaborate, Teresa. I'm looking forward to that to see what we can do and what interventions need to be put in place. And then we need targeted writing interventions. Clearly, writing is 35% of the score, so we do need to pay attention to writing and to speaking. But the basis of all of this is that our teachers need professional development, coaching, and support. That is the foundation of this work. Our ESL, our MLs are with their ESL teacher 1 to 2 periods a day. The rest of the time they are in a gen ed setting. So we have to support our general education teachers to ensure that they have that toolkit. When I was back in the classroom, like my principal, vice principal, where's your toolkit of strategies? Pull them out, right? Like you need to develop our teachers so that they have their toolkit of strategies to meet the linguistic needs of our multilingual learners. I think that is it. Yes, that's it. Yes.
So, thank you for all of that. And I'm not in the field of education, but thank you for the way you explained it. But I was Googling a lot as you were talking, and it seems like this assessing comprehension in English, state English language learners
terms of what happens if we don't meet proficiency for our MLs. ESL, bilingual education, is part of every CUSAC conversation I've ever been privy to. I think Superintendent Glover might be able to speak more to that. But what drives my work is that we just have to do right by kids, right? And so, yes, being compliant and meeting proficiency is important, but the growth is also important. And so seeing that kids are stagnant, that for me is like an alarm, and it's something we need to address. But and I can't speak for our county office here, but I was in conversation with my previous district's county office in terms of like making sure that we are meeting the benchmarks and we are addressing their needs per code, right? So I guess the state goes by code, and you just, at minimum, you have to follow code. Yes. Thank you. It's the same as PSYOP. Yes, it used to be PSYOP, and now it's moved to Sheltered English. I think because it's all, the PSYOP name is owned by like an organization. Yeah. Board president.
So you had said I had something for that earlier, and I guess that was the six
Yes.
identified, interventions that were at the end. And then the question really is, and this might also read over to Superintendent Glover, has there been any thought to investigating those individuals that are exiting those other affiliations, and investigating if those families are providing outside tutoring and so on like that? So I would like to see if there's any way, going forward, we can get some data points about, okay, so these individuals are getting, exiting at a higher rate than these other two ML sections. So what is it that those families are doing that these families maybe aren't? That's number one of the question. And number two, just overall, generally, is it possible with the advancements of, after school tutoring and so on like that, that we could, put in some supports for our MLs to be able to attend after school programming, especially in middle and high school, for extra writing, extra reading, et cetera. And the last point is, the students who have exited, if there's any way we can capitalize on them being buddies or, helping them along. So it's like a three-part series.
I'm gonna try to remember all of them. Yeah, I think it would be interesting to survey families of students who are reaching that rapid proficiency and exiting. But we can control what we can control, and what we can control is providing programming that's going to meet those deficiencies, right? So when I said, oh, I have something for that, it's going to be board approved soon. There is a platform that I've used previously that addresses that speaking and writing deficiency, because as I mentioned, that is typical. It is the receptive language, the listening and the reading is just easier for MLs versus the output. So that was part one. Part two.
Part two was the question about if we can do like after school extra interventions.
So I know at the high school we have tutoring at the high school.
Whether they're ESL or like.
Yeah, that is specific to ESL students. I cannot speak to the K-12 space. I do K-8 space. I do believe that individual schools do have tutoring. Is it outlined to ESL or specific for ESL? I'm not sure, and I don't think so. And then number three.
The last part was students who have exited, if there's any way that we can like have a buddy program. So like, let's say I am, a student and I'm not exiting, but I'm in fifth grade and
I think it's a great idea, and I'm open to all ideas, right? With being in this predicament where I came in July and all the buildings are empty and there's no one to talk to, and nothing to observe, it's strange as an educator to just not see children. But what the 5-6 weeks has given me is an opportunity to look at data, to talk to principals, to talk to the vice principals who have been in, to talk to Blanisha, who's been amazing and has been reaching out to make sure that my transition has been okay. And I think once I have that foundation and once our kids are in, I'll be able to see what we can do. And then, parents are calling, and so having those conversations with parents as well, I'm sure will be helpful. So yes, I do think that we can do, like I mentioned, there's great work here. I think I mentioned 164 students have exited. They're in F1 and F2, and that's just in the last 2 years. I didn't run data for the last 5, 6, 7, 8 years, right? So there are pockets of really great work happening, but we just need to look at where we can do more and how intentional we can be and go from there. Yes?
Brainstorming. What if we were to create a bilingual club?
Right.
Because you have kids who don't want other students to know they're in tutoring or getting extra help. But if we made a club, quote unquote, they would all get to come in together, to work together, to help work on their weaknesses. At the same time, get around individuals where they fit so they don't feel like an outsider. And they're more at peace and more willing to be vulnerable and tell a true story of where they have shortfalls and where they're stronger versus weaker.
Excellent. Yeah, I love that.
Love the brainstorm, thank you. I also wanted to point out that because we have to do the alternative programming, we also do have to have a bilingual parent advisory committee that meets 4 times a year. And so I'm excited to get that started as well, to meet our families and to hear their voices and to hear their brainstorms, to see what they think is working, and to your point, Nancy, to see what works for some families and what might not be working.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your work.
You're welcome. I thought I was ready to go. No. Okay. I should have done a little bit more on bilingual code, but there was an update in 23-24 school year where identifying pre-K students has to happen, and we have to provide support. Translation of the home language has to happen, so any communication that goes home needs to go home in what is identified as the home language. There was updates around certification and curriculum, but the translation piece is really important, is we have to make sure that we're communicating with families in languages that they understand, and it's really important with all the flyers that go home, all the things that schools send home, that we're being mindful of that. I know we have Parent Square that does some translations. We were meeting today with Superintendent Glover and Dr. Solomon around a translation service, an interpretive service that can provide interpretation for families. Just making sure that we're not only following code, right? Code and compliance, of course, important, but we just have to do right by families and make sure that they can communicate with us and we can communicate with them in a language that they understand.
Second part of the most prepared for this talk. 4.5 edit. Is that something the teacher decides or the student decides?
No, the 4.5 is from the test. So from the access for ELS exam that's given yearly, or from the WIDA model. So if it's like a student who scores a 4.2, we can give them the WIDA model mid-year to see if they're ready to. It's just another type of test. So the WIDA access is the yearly district-wide one, and then the model you can use to exit students or progress monitor students, and then the WIDA screener is what you use to screen them and identify students. General ed classes without ESL supports. they typically don't want to stay. And honestly, I've always said that like ESL, if you visit ESL, you shouldn't live there, right? Like it is a space to acquire the skills that you need for you to attain English language proficiency, but it shouldn't be a space that you stay in your whole K-12 career. But we do have a lot of students who actually scored a 6 this year. You're welcome. Thank you for your question. That's what the monitoring's for, so that, and the monitoring happens twice a year at least, right? So that we're hearing from teachers like, oh, this child is struggling, but that's why that coaching and support is important, right? Like, and we are gonna change that. Oh, sorry. Sorry. Change that. What I find is that like, you have to have someone at the table who knows the work, right? And who's willing to advocate and go to the boss and say, hey, this is what I'm seeing and this is how I think we can address that.
Thank you very much. Can we give a round of applause once again? Just arrived to the district and first presentation. So I'm a multitask here. What I want to align, because I committed this when I met with to make sure that everything we did, I'm gonna get another one. Change still? Change still? Wake up, my people. You got it. I can make sure that everything we did aligned to the strategic plan. So, strategic plan, the travels with me is getting a little raggedy, but I just want everyone to be sure. Strategic plan goal number 1 focuses on student achievement. It doesn't say student achievement for one segment of our population. If we're going to continue to boast on the diversity of our community and our school district, we have to make sure that we acknowledge success for all of our students. That's number 1. Strategic plan number 2 focuses on equitable access for all of our students. How do we believe our students allow our students to demonstrate their success if we're not pouring into them and giving them the right resources? So that presentation, I know was meaty, I know it was heavy, but it was essential. It was essential to make sure not only are we holding ourselves accountable, but we are acknowledging where we're growing. And Piscataway definitely, and I've said this, I've been across the whole state and in my capacity as a state director at one point in time, Piscataway's getting it right in many areas. But just because we're getting it right in many areas, the word all is not there. And I want to get it right in all areas. So thank you for the presentation. Equally essential, and another assessment that is required for us to report out on, is those students in our district who take the DLM assessment, the dynamic learning maps. And in conjunction with my great director, Teresa Edmondson, we're going to present, and I'm gonna try to do bird's eye, and maybe we can drill down to questions later. Bird's eye view of the students who are required to take the DLM assessment. This is another state assessment that is only eligible for a targeted group of students who are receiving special education services. Board members, you have in front of you participation guidelines. I think it's essential that you have this document and understand which students in our district are eligible to take the DLM assessment. This is in place of the New Jersey SLA. So students who take the DLM would not be taking the NJSLA, but there are strict requirements on who's eligible to take this assessment. And it's not a one-day sit assessment. It's an assessment given over time throughout the course of the year. I want to share that in our district currently, this past year, 25-26, 40 students who received special education services, 40 took the DLM assessment. You have the criteria. I'm not going to read the whole participation guidelines, but I think it's important for me to read the beginning part so that the community is aware as well. Students with the most significant cognitive disabilities often have one or more disabilities that significantly affect intellectual functioning and adaptive behavior. Adaptive behavior is behavior that is essential to live independently and function safely in daily life upon graduation. Dynamic Learning Maps, DLM, is an alternative assessment designated for students with the most significant cognitive disabilities who require significant instruction and support both in and out of the classroom. There are 3 criteria that must be met. I will not read all 3 of those criteria, but those 3 criteria are essential in establishing whether a student should take the DLM assessment. On September 1st, when teachers arrive back, and those teachers who are special education teachers, cooperating teachers, supported teachers, child study team members, they will have already identified those students who should be receiving the DLM assessment. It's not something you wait until January, February, the spring, because you start assessing day 1. So when I say that, it's essential to understand who takes it and who's eligible. The guidelines have to be followed. Additionally, the Department of Education has set a percentage that a district should keep in mind when we're talking about who should be qualified, who qualifies to take the DLM assessment. This is not teacher recommendation. This is not parent recommendation, although there have been parents who want their students to because they think they can avoid the New Jersey NJSLA assessment. And there are some administrators in the past who used to put some students in there so that their test scores would look higher than they would because they knew certain students may not be successful on the regular NJSLA assessment or the GEPA assessment or the HESPA or NJ-ASC or whatever assessment we used to do. So this Department of Education got very stringent and strict around who's eligible, and you had to align to those requirements. The presentation that you will be seeing this evening, while it's required, it also aligns to the same 2 goals in our strategic plan. Goal number 1, student achievement, and goal number 2, equitable access. And Dr. Mrs. Edmondson will take us through. So understanding the topography of our district and who is taking it and what content areas. Content areas of language arts literacy, math, and science are the content areas that are assessed. As I mentioned, there are 40 students who took it this year. The prior year, based on the data that was presented to me and provided to me, were 43 students. The year prior to that was 25? 35. You don't want to see this number going up, but it's really truly based on who arrives into your district and is grade eligible to assess. Superintendent Glover, what's grade eligible to assess? Let's see if I have this right. Grades 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 11. And you can, now, the number of students who tested each one of those grade levels, I'm gonna let Teresa share.
So for grade 3, there were 7 students, grade 4, 5 students, grade 5, 3 students, grade 6, 7 students, grade 7, 7 students, grade 8, 7 students, and grade 11, only 4 students.
So you see it's spread out. Someone may ask, do they take the assessment every year? So they take it in 3rd grade, or they take it again in 4th grade? Answer is yes. So what about when they get to 9th and 10th grade, do they take the assessment? No. 11th grade in high school. Okay. Again, I'm not gonna read each area, but I do think it's important for you to understand where we've seen some success. Kudos to the district and the district educators who have made sure that our students are starting to move. And I think that's essential to see how our students are moving, especially they've been in the space. Students who may continue to take the DLM their whole high school career, their K to 12 experience. There may be some students who test well enough, where next year they may be taking the NGSLA and may not pass with the proficiency levels to say they're at 750 or above, but they have now left the DLM space. Taking the DLM is not a bad thing, but it's not a space as simply say you want to live there forever. Give you an opportunity to see where we were at over the last 2 years, 2-year comparison, 2025 school year, 2026 school year, ending. And the number of students, and you can see where there's been gains and growth. You can see some spaces where we still need to do some work, but I say do some work because you never know if some students have exit. So sometimes leaving may be a different, and you don't know entry point of some students as well. Because if you arrived here as a 4th grade student, you're gonna obviously see more 4th graders taking the assessment. Anything you wanna add? So far, so good. Okay, all right. In language arts literacy, which like any other content, like that's our content area, our baseline, where we see a lot of students who just have those struggles, those challenges, but it's expected, especially in this space. But the goal is still to find out how do we move our students from that emergent space to where they're now approaching, to where they are more in that targeted advancing that means you exit out of having to take the DLM and take the similar assessment to their peer groups. Math, we have the same expectations. Again, this doesn't mean students are failing. It just means that more supports are needed for those students, but remember, I have to frame it back. What's the definition say? The definition says these are our students who have the most significant cognitive disabilities. I'll go back, I see, apologize. Same in science. So when you look below the averages and you really want to start saying, okay, what does it really look like for us? So let's talk and dig into the micro landscape of our district.
So for ELA, some of our highlights are that in grade 4, 20% did reach proficiency in grade 4, which was a highlight for us. Remember, these are students who are the most cognitive disabled. They oftentimes at this point have not seen the curriculum that we offer for general education students, so they would not be learning the science of reading. They used it as significantly modified to their level. These assessments have manipulatives, and they're not your traditional NJSLA where they pull up on the iPad. They use lots of different things. You have to put together a DLM bin, which can contain like blocks, cowboy hats, things like that. So when we look at this, grade 4, that was a highlight of ours, and that many students are approaching also for grade 7 and grade 6 in ELA. Okay, in math, we see that one of our highlights is again in the grade 4 with a 40% proficiency rate. And in grade 3 and 25, we do have a record of 25% proficiency. We have 2 students in grade, 1 student in grade 5 that was above and exceeded proficiency in the math. And science is only given in grade 5, 8, and 11. So as you can see here, we are overall emerging this past year for the science. In grade 8 and 11, we have 1 approaching. So some breakthroughs, as I mentioned, the grade 5, in 2025, we had 43% were in the top tier. Grade 4, this past year, 40% were in the top tier. And grade 4 ELA, also the 20% top tier. Grade 6 from 2025 was in the 20% top tier. Some of those students for this year for grade 7 may not have taken it, and we moved them to the NJSLA. Sometimes they go to a different class where now they're maybe getting more exposure to the curriculum, and are eligible for the NJSLA and no longer eligible under the standards that were given. Moving forward, we look at the bright spots always. We look at analysis of all of the teaching strategies, and the way that we look to move everybody to the next level. We're going to address the math concentration and contraction to develop more targeted interventions for the math, and we're going to reevaluate the supports for science. This year, where these students are being included in some of the science labs that we're doing with the inclusion classes, so that will expose more of that science content and get them involved in some hands-on activities, which we're very excited about. Okay, thank you.
We're not done. That's right. That's okay. This one will be a little swifter. Again, aligning to, thank you for highlighting that. I think it's important to know that, again, these are students who are severely cognitive, have severe cognitive and intellectual challenges, but doesn't still mean they don't deserve to be exposed to the curricular resources, and that's important to note. This is the Piscataway scorecard. It's very similar to what was just demonstrated and shown. I do want to just highlight a couple of areas in these slides. Go back, apologize. This is our overall achievement scorecard. Similar to what was just mentioned, just presenting a different visual aid so that you can have a representation of where our students sit. Again, language arts literacy, you can see our strengths, and you can again see the areas where movement hasn't been as swift as we would like. There's some digging down to also see, this doesn't necessarily speak to the unique individual students. So in additional reports, we'll be able to say student A in 3rd grade and how they perform in 4th grade or 5th grade. So drilling down may look different. You can also look at regression, which is an important area, because if a child's regressing, something else may be happening, whether it be home, whether it be in school, might be their program. But when I present these, this gives you an overall, doesn't give you specific student by student. I'm looking forward to when I can begin to start showing some variations. I mean, cohort analysis as well as student individual growth that you can look at. You can talk to how those students have performed, especially when you have such a small n equals 40 in this particular situation. Same for math, science, systemic takeaways. Teresa already spoke to it. It's essential to understand, got to get literacy and math correct. Science should be that fun space no matter what, but also including them with the similar experiments, activities that our students are taking in our general education courses and other peer groups will be essential for them. But let's get literacy and math right so that when they do transition up, they're not feeling so far behind. Again, doesn't change their intellectual capabilities, but it still at least gives them exposure and makes them feel part of the social fabric of their classrooms. You want to add anything? All right. I want to thank Teresa for the presentation that she put forth together. Teresa came in tonight, wasn't expected. She just came back from a cross-country flight vacation with her family. So thank you tonight, Teresa. Thank you very much for that. Board members, I do want to, before we go back on stage, I do want to highlight a few other areas, and I'll conclude my presentation from down here since I'm already down here. There's a lot of exciting things I mentioned happening, but one of the things that's important is assessment and how we define assessment in our district. A lot of times we feel that students are over-assessed, and there is some truth to that. I would believe in the state of New Jersey, we do assess our students a lot, but what do we use assessments for? You will receive in your September presentation in CSO, you will receive the definition of assessment as we have laid out in the curriculum space, when we will be giving our students benchmark assessments, interim assessments, and when they'll be taking those final summative and formative assessments. Assessments are not just about gauging where students are at for intervention services, it's also about looking at what students may be eligible for gifted and talented services, what students may be interested in advanced placement, dual enrollment, etc. How do we prepare and accelerate our students even quicker? It also gives us ability to look at our fiscal resources in a different way, because now we can begin to say, do we need to hire more interventionists, or do we need to hire more support staff who can accelerate more students? A lot of times we start spending a lot of money in digital resources and platforms, and it's not really targeted towards the students that need it the most and the swiftest. And if we want to invest in tutoring service or after school clubs, I want to have the fiscal resources to sustain it over time and not be one and done. Everything that we're talking about has to first be rooted in why do we do assessments, and then help parents understand why we're doing assessments. Speaking of having parents understand, board members and just the members of the public, board members were given an example of what the DLM parent assessment looks like, because at the end of the day, parents want to be able to go home and help their children. Across all of our assessments, we're going to begin to develop profiles of a student that parents will be able to take home, look at, and give some concrete supports to their children, whether it be via digital platform or something they can do old school hands-on. Be in the kitchen cooking and doing math with your child, because fractions is all throughout cooking, right? Measurement is all throughout. If you're good with your hands, you have a parent or a family member who's good with their hands and loves to do a lot of building, there's geometry, there's the metric system, there's measurement, there's angles, there's life. So parents will get reports that are easily read and can also show how their child is growing. So I gave the board members an example of that as also. Finally, putting things in the hand to support with our students. If you don't mind, take one and pass it down, please. I think I might be short. If I am, please forgive me. Madam President, Madam Vice President. I want to give once again accolades to our local Rotary Club. We gave out dictionaries to our third grade students in the month of June, I think it was, at the end of June. And one of the challenges I put forth to our students was read a word a day, just one word, learn a new word, learn something, and bring it back. And the goal is for our students to help me increase my vocabulary as well. So this is my vocabulary list for the month of July. Dr. Connors brought forth when I first started Piscataway Reads. We've already started down that path and reinvigorating that and making it, refurbished, repolished, and not brand new, but making people feel and remember what success it means to be able to pick a book up and read. These are the words that I put forth and sent out to all of our rising 4th and 5th graders. I've also asked them to contribute their words. And what I would like to do by the time we get to mid-September is to put together a book of all our summer words. So hopefully we get over 1,000 words, should get many more for the number of students we have, and we can put those words in a nice little digital book where we learn new words and we begin to use those words in our vocabulary. There's some very interesting words on here, board member. That last word on the page, I would describe some of you very well like that, because you are very handsome people. Pleasant, pleasing, and nice. I always used to tell my students that instead of using foul words, choose a word that's synonymous with the word and how you're feeling. Go to the dictionary, look it up, and find it. Let's increase our vocabulary of our students. Board members, that's my superintendent report. I appreciate you being attentive, as it was important to align it to our strategic goal and also to meet our requirement of presenting the data for those 2 assessments that were given to our students. Thank you very much, and I guess we're ready to go back on the dais.
joined us back at the dais. So we will resume, give Ms. Vice President a moment. Personal and labor relations, Chantal Sherry.
Be it resolved that the following motions be approved as identified A through H.
Motion. Can we take the roll?
Dr. Connors?
Yes.
Mrs. Hawk? Mr. King? Dr. Nelson? Mr. Patel?
Yes.
Ms. Rivers? Ms. Stafford? Ms. Cherry?
Yes.
Mrs. Salgado Callen?
Yes.
Motion's carried.
Committee reports is next. Curriculum.
I'm back. The curriculum committee met on Monday, August the 3rd, 2026, to discuss comprehensive health
One
and
second.
PE requirements. The curriculum committee met on Monday, August the 3rd, 2026, to discuss comprehensive health and PE requirements, curriculum guides, and more. Health and PE opt-out. Dr. Lottman explained that parents again will be able to opt out of specific comprehensive health and physical education lessons for grades 5 and 8. These single lessons are regarding puberty in grade 5 and making healthy decisions in life and sex in grade 8, which align with NJ standards. A letter will go out via Parent Square at the end of September, and parents will use Genesis to opt out. Curriculum guide review. Summer curriculum revisions and updates were presented for each department. Major revisions / updates were highlighted for the following courses. Career and technical education was discussed by Robin Kay. New courses with social media marketing, it's a semester course. Project-based CTE school store, AP business with personal finance, which is project-based in business studies. Update, foundations of accounting, combined accounting 1 and 2. Digital literacy was handled by Chris Arabando. Updates was MS Media Technology, incorporating AI literacy, built grade 8 pipeline to TV/radio, TV production 1, digital video editing. Language art was handled by Janine Albanese and Scott Hood. Updates was PHS public speaking, condensed units to integrate skill building / purpose. PHS journalism, new resources with opportunities and challenges of technology. The gifted and talented was discussed by Rebecca Dayton. Updates are honor ELA 4 and 5, modified pacing and realigned units. Honors Math 4 and 5, reviewed alignment and modified pace. Math 6 through 12 was discussed by Frank Rulitsky. His updates were accelerated Math 7, revised sequence and adjusted pacing, restructured geometry, PHS computer science, intro to computer comp science, AP comp science principles, and AP comp science ed. New courses was foundations of cybersecurity. Science K through 8 was discussed by Dr. Jeff Celebree. Updates was K to 8 science, standard alignments, climate change adjustments. Social studies was 9 through 12, discussed by Ryan Werlin. Updates was Honors U.S. History 1, realignment of writing tasks, aligned with AP rubrics. Visual and Performing Arts was discussed by Rebecca Stelacki. Updates was PHS Acting Studio, adjust pacing based on delivery and feedback. PHS BAM, adjusted to revise curricular format. PHS World of Art, reorganization into marketing period units. World Languages and ESL was discussed by Evelyn, and I apologize for not knowing how to pronounce your last name. Operake. Updates were kindergarten ESL, shift to comprehensive contents, integrated, literacy rich curriculum, updated grade 3 ESL, transition to structured asset-based model, grade 6 Spanish, grounded in acute driven instruction, Spanish 2, 3, and 4 honors, emphasize on authentic communication, intercultural competence, and performance-based assessment. Early literacy, numeracy, Superintendent Glover explained that the early literacy and early numeracy are a priority, and data will be available and analyzed so students are better prepared for grades 4 through 12. And that concludes my report. Oh, I didn't realize she disappeared. Policy and legislation, Ms. Rivers.
I guess thank you. The Policy Legislation Committee met on Wednesday on 5th to discuss restrictions on students' personal internet-enabled devices, transporting students by private vehicle. The committee considered proposed policy and regulation 5516, implementing the bell-to-bell restrictions on students' personal internet-enabled devices. Superintendent Glover noted the areas where the Department of Education has allowed districts some limited flexibility and explained his recommendations for how the discretion should be exercised. He also reviewed the proposed consequences for violating the rules and explained how the administration will exercise common sense when extenuating, thank you so much, circumstances call for leniency. Mr. Rubin recommended that the board suspend its usual 2-reading process and adopt the policy and regulation in final form at the August 13th board meeting. The committee approved them for placement on the board agenda. The committee reviewed proposed policies 8660 and 8662 addressing transportation by private vehicles to and from school-related activities and by private or district-owned vehicles to and from school. Mr. Roman explained these policies are intended to address situations when CDL licensed drivers are unavailable or deemed unnecessary. Mr. Glover explained that drivers would be required prior vetting and approval. The committee approved both policies for placement on the board agenda after 1 reading so they can be in place for the start of the school year. Mr. Rubin updated the committee on recent legislation requiring the Department of Education to develop a list of proposed dates for uniform statewide spring recess. He noted that the list will be for recommendation and district comment.
Okay. We will go to approval of minutes. Ms. Labiba Haq. I can't hear you at all.
Be it resolved that the following minutes be approved. Business meeting July 9th, 2026, executive session July 9th, 2026.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Ms. Rivers abstains.
Okay. Public comments from the floor. The board recognizes the value of public comment on educational issues and school matters of community interest. In support of this position, the law established a period of public comment at every board meeting. Individuals wishing to speak must state their name and municipality. Comments are limited to 3 minutes in duration, but an individual may speak a second time after all others who wish to speak on the topic have been heard. The board may require that individuals register to speak prior to the beginning of the meeting. Participants may submit written materials in support of their position. All statements and or questions shall be directed to the presiding officer, and no participant may address or question board members individually. All speakers are requested to express themselves in a civil manner, with due respect for the dignity and privacy rights of others whose legal rights may be affected. Please note, while it is not the board's intention to stifle comments on matters of legitimate concern to the school community, the public should be aware that if their statements violate the rights of others under the law governing defamation or invasion of privacy, they may face personal liability to the injured party. speakers are uncertain of their legal ramifications of their comments, the board urges them to seek guidance beforehand from their own legal advisor. This is public comment time.
Good evening.
Yeah.
Volume okay? Good evening. For the record, Lisa Burke, resident of Piscataway Township. First, I just want to say that I love the superintendent's monthly vocabulary list, and I hope that it might make its way to social media so we can follow along with that practice. Tonight, actually, I did come to speak, though, specifically on an agenda item. It caught my attention that there are a number of policies and related regulations that are listed for adoption on first reading. In my lifelong commitment to open and transparent participatory government, that gave me pause. So I appreciated the opportunity to look a bit further at the two items, and I just wanted to actually say that I have some concerns about expediting readings, and if I could just kind of lay out the thinking behind them. So I actually have concern with regard to the internet-enabled device policy and regulations, both as to substance and to the reach. I understand that the authorizing statute allows for districts to go beyond bell-to-bell. I am surprised at the degree to which ours goes beyond bell-to-bell, and I think if adopted in that scope, we should shorthand it as bell-to-bell plus in full candor, but maybe we don't get there. So what I'm having a hard time reconciling is the intersection of a policy that goes so far beyond bell-to-bell and is proposed to be adopted under first reading. To me, those don't match my experience of this district, and in particular, and I know that Superintendent Glover has had community forums and done a presentation that talks about the scope of the concerns that underlie a bell-to-bell policy, and also the general architecture of a bell-to-bell policy. However, what has also been, to me, characteristic of the superintendent's tenure has been three things that are so important: transparency, communication, and engagement. And to me, in August meeting, adoption on first reading of something that is so far-reaching doesn't feel in alignment with the principles and culture of the district. And I decided to come forth and speak tonight because I think that there can be an unintended consequence of folks feeling, wait, we thought we had input, but we didn't actually have input before it was finalized. And so, you know, without giving advice, and I do understand from the report that Attorney Rubin advised or recommended, the report noted, that this could be adopted on one reading. I think that while that can be technically accurate, I think the board has to think about the community relations dimension of the general practice even of a single reading. So with that, I would actually hope that you might consider whether there are other procedural options tonight. I imagine there is a pressure to have this in place before September 1st, but I don't know if that can wind up with a tail wagging the dog situation if there is potential broad or even somewhat limited community feedback about how far this goes. My other read, again, was the way that the regulation, to me, almost read like a discipline policy. And the other piece, and I will wrap up now, is there's something that doesn't align between the principles and concept of a bell-to-bell policy and building responsible digital citizenship, where then the regulation is mostly about the consequences. And so I don't see in the policy a transition towards building a culture of more responsible use. And so I appreciate the opportunity to address you. Thank you.
Thank you.
extent that it goes beyond a bell-to-bell policy, and there are even more restrictions on student use of internet-enabled devices, particularly looking at a prohibition on student use prior to the school day versus not then similarly restricting student use after the school day seems a little bit inconsistent. And I also wanted to continue to note that it is I don't know if the word is, I was going to say troubling, I'll go with that, that the district would want to place more burdens on students who want to use their internet-enabled devices who happen to be using school buses to get to and from school rather than those students that are walking. I think that if there is concern about behavior on school buses, then maybe there can be other tools to address any behavioral issues that might be happening on buses, not to put in another policy that is going to be enforced by a school bus driver, or purported to be enforced by a school bus driver. So again, I think that this might be a place and a space where, while there might be discretion to expand beyond bell to bell, it doesn't make a lot of sense to me. And as to procedurally, it makes a lot more sense to have a bell to bell policy that would be read and passed in one reading, as opposed to a policy that is broader than bell to bell that is being read on one reading. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Are there any other individuals in the community who would like to make any comments at this time? Okay, can I have a motion to close? I didn't hear you.
Second.
Thank you.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
Mr. Glover is going to address some.
Thank you very much, Madam President. Thank you to the community members who came forth, and Celeste and Lisa and Sharon. So, just as a point of kind of clarification on how we got to this point, I think all of the members of the board also appreciate and respect the opportunity to have input from the community when you do first read, second read, before you do adoption. We, and I don't want to make it sound like I'm throwing the Department of Ed or anyone else under the bus, but the districts were, many of us were trying to wait until the Department of Education came out with FAQs so that we would be in alignment. Those FAQs did not come out until mid to late July. And unfortunately for us, boxed us in because we are required to have a policy in place by the first day of school. So we've been asking, since the prior Governor Murphy signed the bill in January, what's the FAQs? We understood the transition at the Department of Education, new commissioner coming in, time for a new governor to come in, and unfortunately, many of us were waiting to make sure we were in alignment with the Department of Education FAQs and the law, which there's been some back and forth, and Attorney Rubin can chime into that space, even between the legislators, where they landed, if there was any latitude that could be given to the districts, which ultimately we were informed that we had to follow the signed law by Governor Murphy and what bell to bell meant. So there were restrictions in that. And that timeline wasn't conducive to us to be able to go through the first and second read. I will say, though, that the Department of Ed did put guidelines in place that allowed us to not see this as punitive, because prior to that, it was really all over the map. I like to believe this isn't one that focuses on punitive consequences as opposed to really responsibility. And districts do have latitude in some spaces. Specifically, start of the day, end of the day, there's no options. Those areas before school and after school is where districts could have some communication about how we looked at it differently. What we looked at was looking at data points around incidents that occur on our school buses that lead to HIB cases and other disciplinary infractions that said we need to put a policy in place that allows us to have some latitude to say, while on the bus, this is what took place. There's, without going into every aspect of the policy, there's some other things that were discussed that we have latitude in. But I want to conclude by saying this: while this is a first read, while we did need to have something in place by September 1st, as mentioned in committee, and I'm sure the board will agree with this, if not, they can definitely chime, we are able to come back and make adjustments. And I anticipate during the first marking period especially, as both the students, parents, staff members are getting adjusted to this, there may be some adjustments that we make based on the data that's coming back to us. The ultimate goal was to make sure we were following the Department of Education's guidelines, we were following statute and code and the law, and now we can begin to address any adjustments or tweaks we have to make. That's the high level response I think I can give to both, but I do want to respect and I do want to echo the sentiments that were brought forth. I don't think this board would love to have rushed through any of the readings. I truly believe we would have liked to have had time to review it and revise it accordingly, first read, second read. I just don't want to have us be put in a situation where Piscataway did not follow compliance by the department. But I do believe the department's going to be, and the board can anytime open up a policy and say, let's make an adjustment. And I think that's a fair way to look at it, where we can also give the parents and the community time to give us additional feedback. I'll add to that in closing. There are going to be additional community forums, there's going to be additional conversations, especially in the high school. I personally will be leading those, my assistant superintendents will be engaged in those conversations. So because our next board meeting in September is so close to the start of school, I imagine by the time we get back to October, we'll be able to have some more concrete data that will be able to say this is where we're at, and can we revisit the policy and go through additional reads. I don't think this is our final version, but this at least gets us to the door to start the school year.
Thank you for that, Superintendent Glover. I just want to also comment, Ms. Loretta Rivers and Mr. Rubin will be continuing their policy meetings throughout the year. They're all laid out at the back of the agenda, and we do encourage, community participation, as many of you do know. Anyone out there in the community interested in joining those committees can go online to our Piscataway website and join our policy committee, where we get to make some suggestions. We really do respect our community members, and to that end, I would like to say that, this isn't the end of the conversation, as Mr. Glover said. This is the opportunity to get to September 1st, and we will see where it goes in the future. Thank you. So, fiscal planning and operations, Dr. Tom Connors.
Be resolved that the following motions identified as items A through O be approved as presented.
Second.
Can we take the roll?
Mrs. Hawk? Mr. King?
Yes.
Dr. Nelson? Mr. Patel?
Yes.
Ms. Rivers? Ms. Stafford? Dr. Connors?
Yes.
Ms. Cherry?
Yes.
Mrs. Salgado Cowan?
Yes.
Motion's carried.
Okay. We have curriculum. Oh, sorry, policy. Ms. Loretta Rivers.
Yes, be it resolved that the following motions identified as item A and B be approved as presented. That's one comment.
Yes, you just get closer.
A second first, and then you.
Second.
Get closer to the mic, because I don't know if everybody can hear you.
I just wanted to comment, thank you. I know it was,
Yes.
on the floor, and Superintendent Glover already spoke my words, and thank you, President Nancy, too, as well, that we're not going to just stop here for the bell to bell. But I just wanted to clarify for everyone who's out in the audience or on, the web, that, as a committee, the policy committee, we just want to clarify, just like Superintendent Glover did say, this is a first and second, which is not normal for us, and we do respect your wishes and the community that we serve, and the bell-to-bell policy at the same time. New Jersey recently, just like Superintendent said, that they adopted and January, and we're just getting to it now from Strauss SMA in the state of New Jersey, right? So restricting the bell-to-bell usage was a committee decision, right? And the school district with the implementation to respond promptly and to ensure our district is prepared to comply with the new state laws and requirements, right? The board is moving forward with both readings at this time. However, adopting this policy does not mean it cannot be reviewed or revised. As we evaluate its implementation in September, the board may make appropriate changes based on the state guidance, district experience, feedback from the families and staff, and the needs of our students. The township also held a meeting this past June with Superintendent Glover, where he asked, our community to come out and talk about the bell-to-bell and their concerns regarding it. At the same time, our responsibility as a board is to make decisions that support a safe, focused learning environment and protect the academic, socially, and emotionally wellness of every student. We understand that families may have questions about the communication, emergencies, enforcement, and the student needs. Those concerns deserve thoughtful consideration, but they should not prevent us from taking responsibility and action. We will continue to listen, reviewing the policy and its impact, and making necessary adjustments while keeping students' learning, safety, and well-being at the center of our decisions. So this is not the last.
Just for clarity of the record, it's my understanding the intent of the motion that we suspend our normal 2 reading requirement and adopt the policies in subsection A, finally adopt them in one meeting this evening. That's my understanding of the intent of the motion.
Right. So we have a second, right? So we will take the roll.
Mr. King?
Yes.
Dr. Nelson?
Yes.
Mr. Patel?
Yes.
Ms. Rivers? Ms. Stafford? Dr. Connors?
Yes.
Mrs. Hawk?
Yes.
Ms. Cherry?
Yes.
Mrs. Salgado Cowan?
Yes.
Motion's carried.
Okay. Now we go to curriculum. Mr. Patel.
Be it resolved that following motions identified as items A through E be approved as presented.
Second.
Take the roll.
Dr. Nelson?
Yes.
Mr. Patel?
Yes.
Ms. Rivers? Ms. Stafford? Dr. Connors?
Yes.
Mrs. Hawk? Mr. King?
Yes.
Ms. Cherry?
Yes.
Mrs. Salgado Cowan?
Yes.
And motion's carried.
Okay. We should have Dr. Gal Nelson with pupil services.
Be it resolved that the following motions identified as items A and B be approved as presented. Second.
Can we take the roll?
Mr. Patel?
Yes.
Ms. Rivers? Ms. Stafford? Dr. Connors?
Yes.
Mrs. Hawk? Mr. King?
Yes.
Dr. Nelson?
Yes.
Ms. Cherry?
Yes.
Mrs. Salgado Cowan?
Yes.
Motion's carried.
Next we'll have administrative and auxiliary by Anika Stafford. I just do want to comment that board members should be excluding themselves from E. For themselves, meaning accept all and exclude myself, Nancy Salgado County.
So, Mrs. Salgado Cowan, if you can, what we tried to do is split them. So first, you're going to move items A through D, and
Okay. Hold to E.
the board can vote, and then you can move item E separately, Ms. Stafford. And if you just say yes when we vote on item E, I will abstain each of you from your individual name.
Okay, thank you. Just wanted to bring that up attention. Thank you, Mrs. Stafford.
Be it resolved that the following motions identified as A through D be approved as presented.
Second.
Okay, can we take the roll?
Ms. Rivers? Ms. Stafford? Dr. Connors?
Yes.
Mrs. Hawk? Mr. King?
Yes.
Dr.
Dr. Nelson?
Yes.
Mr. Patel?
Yes.
Ms. Cherry?
Yes.
Mrs. Sagara-Khan?
Yes.
Motion's carried.
Be it resolved that the following motion identified as item E be approved as presented.
Second.
Can we take the roll?
Ms. Rivers?
No, you have to say yes.
You say yes, and
Abstain.
I will abstain you from your name. Ms. Stafford? Dr. Connors?
Yes.
Mrs. Hawk? Mr. King?
Yes.
Dr. Nelson?
Yes.
Mr. Patel?
Yes.
Ms. Cherry?
Yes.
Mrs. Sagara-Khan?
Yes.
Motion carries. I'll just note, board members, please see me after the meeting, or my office will reach out to you next week just to clarify the details of the workshop participation. Thank you.
Okay, we're moving along to old business. I have some old business. I will just comment that as we are continuing our efforts as to be an exemplary school board, we will be hosting our very first annual, and I hope it will be continued annual, summer retreat for our school board members this Saturday, where we will be meeting to go over our district goals as well as our board self-evaluation, where we get to take a look at ourselves and how we are performing amongst ourselves. So that will be happening this Saturday, and I'm very happy that we will be doing that. That's all I have for old business. Anybody else? Patrick Connors? Wow, okay. We're moving on to new business. Any new business on this side of the room?
Madam President.
Oh, I got a new business over there. Mr. Prashant Patel.
Madam President, I would like to quickly share information about statewide school funding initiative and how several local factors relate to it. On August 5th, New Jersey Department of Education launched a statewide funding outreach effort to review and modernize school funding formula. The NJDOE is also releasing a public school funding learning series explaining core elements such as adequacy budget, local fair share, and categorical aid. The state is actively seeking input through listening sessions and online portal. Piscataway has several structural physical constraints that may be relevant to this statewide review. A significant portion of land within our township is owned or controlled by Rutgers University, which is tax exempt and not available for municipal development. Other municipalities face similar challenges with state-owned land, protected highlands and pinelands, or large nonprofit or institutional footprint. These factors reduce the taxable base available to support local services, including schools, yet they are not directly reflected in the current funding formula. Additionally, some municipalities statewide use pilot payment in lieu taxes agreement. Under standard pilot structures, the building value is exempt from regular property taxation, and school districts do not automatically receive a share of pilot revenue. This reduces taxable base and can place greater share of school tax levy on homeowners and small business outside those agreements. Because school funding directly affects our taxpayers and our budget, I would like to suggest two small non-binding steps. First, under community outreach, posting a link on our district website or social media directing residents to NJDOE school funding page at nj.gov/education/school funding website, so committee members who wish to participate can do so. Second, under administrative awareness, asking our business administrator and leadership team to review the NJDOE outreach materials and upcoming listening session schedule and to share Piscataway's physical circumstances, including tax-exempt land and pilot impacts, through state's official feedback channel. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Patel. So I appreciate you investigating that and sharing that information. I think it is pivotal that people do consider the funding formula, since that is the biggest reason that schools are not given their fair share of tax from the state, in which then it falls on our community here in Piscataway. So it's very timely. I appreciate you sharing that information with us, and I do know that because we are a fully transparent and outwardly facing school district, that our team, I'm sure, will be able to get those things out into the community.
Thank you.
Madam President, if I may,
Yes.
Board Member Patel, could you please just see Dr. Lottman and give him those 2 points so we can address that immediately? Thank you. Dr. Lottman, you got that?
Madam President, if I can.
Yes, Dr. Connors.
I had the privilege of, as the Vice President for Finance of the New Jersey School Board Association, to be invited by the Commissioner of Education for that particular meeting. I was representing the New Jersey School Board Association with several other of my colleagues, and the New Jersey Association of School Business Officials was all represented, as well as the association that represents all the superintendents. And during that discussion, one of the considerations for the modernization of the formula is to include the topic of the payments in lieu of taxes. And I'll find out soon whether or not I will be the representative on the steering committee for the particular committee that modernization that you're talking about. But I can assure you that it was quite it was an hour-and-a-half meeting, and the purpose of that particular communication is to really, it's an educational piece at the very beginning. They're first going to be actually educating, believe it or not, our legislators on the formula itself, and some of the key aspects, specifically as what you're talking about. The biggest juggernaut is the equalization aid. So that's going to be one of the focuses. And so we have representation. Those are 2 great specific questions to ask of that group and to have under consideration, based on the fact that, as you know, New Jersey School Board Association has a delegate assembly which puts forth positions and policies that represent all of the school boards across the state, and the pilots are part of that. So thank you, Board Member Prashant Patel, and I will do my best to represent that topic.
Thank you so
Thank you,
much.
Dr. Connors.
Very lively. Thank you all. Superintendent Glover also has new business for us.
2 things to celebrate. First and foremost, September 1st is the first day of school for our educators. We are looking forward to welcoming them back. Start of the school year is an exciting time for families. In many ways, our parents are ready to see their children get back to school because maybe they're tired of them being in the house. But more so for us, we're excited to welcome back our students. For those who have the ability and opportunity, let's welcome all of our students. If you are able to take a few minutes before you go to work and just be outside to greet our students and give them applause, celebrate them as they're entering the school year, it's a lot. That first day is a special day. Whether you're 3 years old or you're a senior, the first day of school is always a special day of school. So let's be there to welcome our scholars and make sure that they're excited when they come back. Equally, I can't wait to see our educators come back on September 1st. On September 1st, when our educators come back, we have a little surprise for them to welcome them and make sure they feel the love. We have approximately, I'll probably mess this up, about 40, 50 new educators coming into our district. Is that correct? So we're in that ballpark. Let's welcome them back and let them know that the P way is the right way. And so when they come here, they're going to know that this is a warm, loving environment. And speaking of warm, loving environment, I'm happy to announce this. Today I received some news around 3:20 this afternoon. Many of our students participate in a variety of digital platforms to enhance and improve our students' outcomes and success. One of our schools was ranked as one of the top performing schools in the state of New Jersey. And I want to give a warm congratulations to this school for their overall IXL usage, average number of skills students have reached proficiency in, strong engagement, consistent student progress and implementation, and I want to take this moment to shout out Arbor Intermediate School. Let's give a round of applause. Arbor will be receiving a banner that we will definitely recognize in the next board meeting and then also hang out in the school so they can all see. There are great things happening, and this is a tribute to our educators, our parents, and of course, those scholars who are doing the work. This is going to help improve those outcomes for student success in the area of language arts, literacy, and math, and that's just one example. If you're consistent, 20 minutes a day, look what happens. Let's go, Arbor. Thank you.
Okay, I think, do we have anything else? Yes.
And, Madam President, you know, as Executive State Officer for New Jersey School Boards, I just received the schedule for the County School Board Association meetings.
Yep.
And, you know, we should all be proud of ourselves because as part of New Jersey School Boards, we have a board certification program. And we have just reached the highest level, which is the Master Board certification based on all of our things that we do outside of our board meetings. And we will be celebrated October 7th at the Middlesex County School Board Association meeting as receiving the Carol A. Larson Master Board certification.
And this is the first time that our board has received the Master Board certification.
Yes, it
Woo!
is.
All right, thank you, Dr. Connors. And I just want to comment, like, you know, it is this board that's receiving that certification and that recognition on October the 7th, but there are many, many board members who are no longer sitting at this dais who are part of that process. And so I do want to make a shout out to all of our board members within the last 2 to 3 years who've really been part of this stewardship towards this. I also want to just personally thank Dr. Tom Connors as being our spearman in making sure that we stay on track to, you know, keep ourselves educated, number one, keep ourselves civil, number two, and also to make sure that always be a listening ear to our newest board members as he is our senior board member. So I would greatly appreciate all of that. And that's all I have to say on that topic. Anybody? Okay, so new business is done. I would need a motion to close. Okay, all those in favor of closing, say aye. Aye. Is anyone opposed? Nah. Okay,